Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is another Everton manager update. We're going to sit down and talk about the latest news regarding Everton's vacant managerial role and the latest names that have been sort of thrown in the hat to potentially take over at Everton Football Club. And we've just had actually a couple of minutes ago some breaking news, not specifically regarding the Everton managerial situation, but I suppose it is regarding the Everton managerial situation because it throws a massive spanner in the works. And this is coming from John Percy at The Telegraph, who is quite a reliable source. The Telegraph are known for only putting information out there if they believe it to be correct, rather than just throwing any old sort of stuff out there. And they have said that Nuno Espirito Santo is in advanced talks with Crystal Palace and is on the verge of becoming their new manager. An appointment is seen as close, and Nuno is emerging as Palace's number one target. So there you go. For as much as that doesn't specifically have anything directly linked to Everton Football Club, it shows that Nuno Espirito Santo, who of course is seen as one of Everton's targets, and a couple of days ago was seen as the front runner for the Everton job, is close to signing for Crystal Palace, is close to becoming Crystal Palace's new manager. And this isn't something that's just completely come out of the blue. By the way, Crystal Palace were heavily linked with Nuno Espirito Santo before Carlo Ancelotti actually left Everton, and before Everton were in the hunt for a new manager. There was strong rumours that the former Wolves boss was going to take over at Selhurst Park and be the replacement for Roy Hodgson. Then obviously when Everton come into the equation, it all sort of went up in the air. But it seems like Crystal Palace have stuck to their guns and seem, sort of adamant on bringing Nuno Espirito Santo in. Which is fair enough to them. Obviously they haven't back down. They haven't sort of looked and gone, well, Everton are interested now, so we'll have to back off. They've wanted their man and they've gone after him, and and Nuno Espirito Santo is clearly interested in that job, because ultimately, look, he wouldn't be talking with Crystal Palace. He wouldn't be in advanced talks with Crystal Palace if he had his heart set on Everton. But maybe Everton haven't offered as much as Crystal Palace are offering. Maybe Everton aren't as interested as as Crystal Palace are, and it seems like Crystal Palace are very interested in going and getting Nuno and bringing him in as the next manager. So, like I said, it doesn't have any direct sort of, it's not a direct sort of rumour regarding Everton, but Nuno is a manager that, like I said, last week was seen to be the front runner for the Everton job. Even earlier on this week was seen to be the front runner for the Everton job, and now according to John Percy at The Telegraph, it looks like he is in advanced talks with Crystal Palace and is on the verge of becoming their new manager. He says that, and an appointment is close. Now, this should be a real wake-up call for Everton, especially if Nuno Espirito Santo is one of the names on Everton's list of potential managers to bring in. This should be a real wake-up call, because Everton should now go out and actively put the feelers out there to Nuno. If they want to bring Nuno Espirito Santo into the club, then they're going to have to go and do something fairly quickly, because, like I said, it seems like he is close to signing that contract for Crystal Palace. So they need to make contact at some point. They if it's demands that Nuno is wanting. There was a rumour yesterday regarding Nuno Espirito Santo being the front runner at Everton, and have actually interviewed for the Everton job. However, there's an issue with his backroom staff and the amount of backroom staff that he wants to bring into the football club. So if that is the case, then maybe Everton need to go out and try and find some agreement with Nuno Espirito Santo, if he is the man that they want, if he is the manager that they want to bring in. And they're going to need to do it fairly quickly, because, like I said, according to The Telegraph, it looks like Nuno Espirito Santo is on the verge of becoming Crystal Palace's new manager, which again isn't a massive surprise, because, like I said, he was heavily linked with Crystal Palace before Everton even were in the hunt for a new manager, and there was a lot of talk that he'd become their manager prior to Carlo Ancelotti leaving. Carlo Ancelotti left, and then, of course, everything was thrown in the air, and I think there's been a lot of names that we've spoken about over the last week or so, and it's been a week since Carlo left Everton, and there has been a lot of names that have been thrown in the hat, and there's been a lot of names that we've sat down on these live streams and we've mentioned, a lot of names that will be linked with Everton, and Everton are probably interested in bringing in a lot of names that are just complete and utter nonsense and have just been thrown out there for the sake of it, and actually there's no substance to them whatsoever. But Nuno Espirito Santo for me was definitely one of those names that had a lot of substance to it, and I think was definitely high up in Everton's list. Obviously Premier League experience, had a few really good years at Wolves, won in the Championship I believe, and then a couple of seasons fighting in the European positions, even finishing in Europe, and then obviously it sort of went a little bit sour last season. He didn't have the greatest season last season, but there was reasons for that. They had a lot of injuries, Wolves. They obviously lost their best player in Raul Jimenez. They sold, their other main striker in Diego Jota. So there was obviously, reasons and factors for Wolves not having the greatest of seasons last season. So I do think that Nuno was high up in Everton's list, and maybe still is high up in Everton's list, and maybe this is, the kick up the arse that Everton need to actually go out and go, no, do you know what, we'll just offer him the same amount of money that Palace are offering him, or we'll give him the same demands as Palace are offering him. But if Marcel Brands is heading this recruitment drive for a new manager, which he absolutely should be, we spoke about it on Friday with Tom about Marcel Brands being the director of football and absolutely needing to be in control of this situation, then maybe Marcel Brands has adopted the sort of same style with the managerial appointments as he does with players, i.e. what I mean by that is maybe Nuno Espirito Santo wants too much money for what Marcel Brands deems he is worth, or he should be paid. Maybe Nuno Espirito Santo is demanding certain demands that Marcel Brands doesn't believe we can fulfill, i.e. maybe having control of bringing in certain players, or bringing in a certain, I don't know, member of staff to help with recruiting players. And maybe Marcel Brands is looking at it going, no, we don't need that. I'm here to recruit players. I'm here to be the director of football. We don't need somebody else that's going to come in and challenge my job and my role. That's why I'm here. So, you never really know what's going on behind the scenes, do you? And like I said, this has literally just come out about 15 minutes ago. And it's not massively surprising, because Crystal Palace have obviously seen Everton are interested in a new manager, and they've probably looked at the situation and gone, well, we can't really compete with a club the size of Everton, in regards to the fact that if Nuno Espirito Santo was given exactly the same at Everton as what he'd be given at Palace, he'd probably go to Everton, because they're, again, look, I like Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace are a decent club, but there's no hiding it. Let's be honest, Everton are a bigger club, and arguably in a better situation, even though we're not in the greatest situation at the moment. So Nuno would probably choose Everton over Crystal Palace. So maybe Crystal Palace have gone, right, we just need to go full balls to the wall. If we want this manager, we need to go and show him that we want him, and whatever demands he wants, we'll give him, and whoever players he wants to bring in, we'll make them happen, and this, that, and the other. So again, it's really, really interesting. Like I said, it does have a direct impact on the Everton managerial role, because Nuno was a name that was heavily linked with Everton, and has heavily been linked with Everton over the last sort of week or so. And according to John Percy at The Telegraph, Nuno Espirito Santo is in advanced talks with Crystal Palace, as on the verge of becoming their new manager, and appointment is said to be close. So look, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Like I said, if Everton really do want Nuno Espirito Santo, if Everton have got their heart set on Nuno Espirito Santo, which I don't think they have, because if they had, I think it'd have all been tied up by now, and I think Nuno would be in an Everton trackie, and would have already seen pictures and interviews with him. So I don't think it's quite that type of situation where Everton have got their heart set on Nuno and he's just wanting to go to Crystal Palace. I think Everton are still sort of humming and hawing and maybe trying to decide who they actually want to bring in. But Nuno was definitely a name on the list, and Nuno was definitely a name that Everton were talking to. Fabrizio Romano said that he was, they were talking to Nuno Espirito Santo, and he wasn't the only name on the list, but he's certainly high up in that list. And now it looks like that for whatever reason Nuno's decided that he may want to go and join Crystal Palace. Maybe that's because he's getting more of what he wants at Crystal Palace than he was at Everton. Maybe that's because Everton are stalling with the situation. But if Everton are really sort of, if Nuno is high up on that list for Marcel Brands and for Everton Football Club, if Nuno is one of those names that Everton are looking at and thinking, yeah, you know what, we seriously, need to be going out and getting, then they need to do something now, really. By the end of today, they need to sort of puff their shoulders up and show their backbone, if you like, and go out and try and cause an issue with this potential appointment for Crystal Palace, because ultimately otherwise Nuno's just going to sign for Crystal Palace, and then that'll be another name crossed off the list. But look, who knows? Again, like I said, it's so said it yesterday on the stream yesterday about the players. It's so easy to, typically, especially on social media, in this day and age, as football fans, we get fed certain amounts of information. We get fed sort of bits and bobs. It's like reading a book, reading a story, and having like certain paragraphs missing out, or certain, key moments missing out, and then sort of, because you're that interested and you're that invested in the book, or you're that invested in the story, you just sort of make up in your mind what you believe those certain pieces of the story would be that are missing out, or those certain, paragraphs that maybe have been redacted. You sort of think, right, okay, well, that probably happened in that paragraph because that would make sense. And in the reality of the situation is, we don't truly know the full story behind this, and we don't truly know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. All as we know is that Everton were talking to Nuno Espirito Santo. He was said to be high on the list. Crystal Palace were also massively interested in Nuno Espirito Santo. We knew that anyway, because there was rumours about Nuno going to Crystal Palace, like I said, prior to Everton even being in the hunt for a new manager. So we've just sort of filled in the gaps and gone, oh my god, Nuno's going to Crystal Palace. Everton have lost the man that they want. Maybe Marcel Brands has gone, no, do you know what? Maybe he's had a meeting with Nuno over the last couple of days and said, no, we can't accept those demands. We're not in a position to give you this, that, the other, X, Y, and Z. So I'm sorry, but that's not going to work. And maybe Everton have said to Nuno, yeah, do you know what? This isn't going to work. Thanks for your time, we'll move on, and then therefore Nuno's gone and signed for Palace, and we've all sort of filled in the gaps in between that. We really don't know, but one thing's for sure is that I think we'll see in the next 24 hours or so. Probably by tomorrow, we'll probably come on the channel tomorrow morning, and we'll have another update on this situation. But we'll certainly see if Everton are serious about bringing in Nuno, and Nuno is a name that is at the top of the list. And as a lot of journalists have said, there's sort of the front runner in this race. Then Everton have got to go out and sort of, like I said, puff the shoulders out a little bit and show their backbone, and go to Nuno and go, no, hang on, don't go to Crystal Palace. Come here and we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we'll give you the other. If he does sign for Crystal Palace today and it's all done and dusted, then it's clear that Everton, he wasn't Everton's man. He wasn't top of Everton's list. He wasn't the name that Everton wanted to bring in. But there you go. It is interesting. I literally changed the title of the live stream about 5 minutes before we went live, because the title of the live stream was Nuno interviews for Everton job, and that's because yesterday we had a transfer rumour coming from a Twitter account pardon me, called Football Insider 247. Now, look, it's an account with a lot of followers, to be fair, and it's been on Twitter for a long time, but again, there's absolutely no substance or no reliability in Twitter accounts with a lot of followers. Let's be honest, anybody can create a Twitter account and amass a certain amount of followers and then sort of sit there and write a load of stuff and claim that it's real or claim that you're in the know. I don't know, this football Twitter account, this Football Insider 247, might be the most reliable account on the platform. He might have in the knows left, right and centre, and he might know information that we don't know, but you can't really, you've got to take everything that comes from these types of accounts and these types of platforms with a massive pinch of salt, because literally anybody on the planet can create a Twitter account, can amass a certain amount of following, and then can lash up a nice graphic and say, right, okay, I know loads of stuff about loads of footy clubs, when in reality they mightn't know a single thing. But they did come out yesterday and say that Nuno Espirito Santo was interviewed for the Everton job. The former Wolves manager is the leading candidate. However, one stumbling block is the size of the backroom staff that he would like to bring to the football club. Now, I thought that was really interesting when I read that, because I read that as not just Nuno Espirito Santo wanting to bring in loads of coaches or wanting to bring in loads of medical staff or whatever. I specifically read that in regards to sort of maybe Nuno wanting to bring in some staff that would help with recruitment, maybe wanting to bring in some staff that would put, not put Marcel Brands' job in jeopardy, but maybe sort of take certain elements of Marcel Brands' job away from him. And again, that's exactly the opposite of what we want. Marcel Brands is being employed at Everton Football Club as the director of football. Marcel Brands has been given a new 3-year contract at Everton Football Club. He absolutely should be allowed to make footballing decisions. He should be allowed to direct football. There's no way, there's no scenario that I would be happy with Marcel Brands just stepping aside and being paid for not doing the role that he's being paid for. I just don't think it makes any sense whatsoever. So it is interesting because, again, obviously we know Nuno at Wolves worked very closely with a certain footballing agent was it Jorge Mendes, I think, and that was, largely the reason as to why Wolves were basically Portugal FC, wasn't it? And had an absolute, load of Portuguese players, very good Portuguese players to be fair, but they had a load of various different Portuguese players, and that was because they were all sort of represented by the same agent, and Nuno Espirito Santo had some sort of relationship with that agent and worked very closely with him. He was sort of an unofficial, director of football, if you like. I don't actually quite know what his role was, and I don't really know if it was, it was a legal role in the world of football. But look, regardless of what the role was, he worked quite closely to Mendes in terms of recruiting at Wolves and bringing in a specific profile of player at Wolves to do the job that Nuno Espirito Santo wanted and needed to do, and it worked for 3-4 years at Wolves, didn't it? It really worked for him. But maybe part of that recruitment staff that was apparently a stumbling block on Everton's appointment to Nuno Espirito Santo was that he wanted to bring in a similar sort of figure to Mendes, or maybe even Mendes himself, and he practically wanted to bring in somebody that was going to make all of those signings or bring those players in that he needed and wanted to bring in. And Marcel Brands went, hang on a minute, that's not how it works here. This is my job, this is what I'm paid to do, this is what I'm here to do, so that's not happening. Again, I'm just purely speculating there that could be the case. It mightn't be the case at all. It's just pure speculation from my side of things. But look, it's clear that... Listen, it's clear as day that there's obviously an issue with Nuno Espirito Santo and Everton. Because for me, if everything was fine, if everything was all sorted and there was no issues whatsoever and there was no problems, Nuno Espirito Santo would absolutely... He'd come to Everton in a heartbeat. I think if you look at him as a manager, his current position as a manager and where he is in his career, you look at Everton and the aspirations that Everton is said to have, or certainly that the board, throw down our throats that we have, and then you look at Crystal Palace, and again, like I said, I really do like Crystal Palace, but you compare the both clubs, you'd say Everton was the bigger step, you'd say Everton was the step up from Wolves, whereas maybe Palace is a sideward step, if you like, and again, that's no disrespect to Palace. So I honestly think that if Everton and Crystal Palace were offering the same deal, and there was no issues or no stumbling blocks or whatever you want to say with Everton, that Nuno Espirito Santo would be the new Everton manager. But there's clearly something going on there, because like I said, as John Percy from the Telegraph has said, that Nuno is very close to signing for Crystal Palace, and that rumour yesterday from Footy Insider, which again, make of it what you will. I don't particularly believe it because it's coming from a Twitter account with not much substance whatsoever, but it would make sense for there to have been a stumbling block with Nuno Espirito Santo, because otherwise, if Everton were dead sort of set on they wanted Nuno to come into the football club and they were willing to give him whatever and he was the next manager, then I honestly think it would have been done and dusted by now. This is a man who's out of a job. This is a man who again, you don't need to talk about compensation. You don't need to go and buy him out of a contract. He's out of a job. He's unemployed. So if we were tunnel vision on Nuno Espirito Santo, I think he'd be the manager by now. And it's clear that Everton aren't tunnel vision on Nuno Espirito Santo, because like I said, again, not only would this situation not have gone on for what is a week now, but you wouldn't have seen about 25, 30 names in the media. You wouldn't have read articles saying that 40 applicants have applied for the Everton role and Marcel Brands is working his way through them. You'll have just seen, right, Everton are dead set on one specific manager and they're going to go out and get that specific manager, a little bit like Real Madrid did. So it's very clear that decision hasn't been made yet from an Everton point of view, and Everton are still sort of humming and hawing, and I dare say that various different members of the Everton board are undecided on who they want to bring in. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that some members of the Everton board will want one manager, other members will want another manager, other members might want a different manager, and that really, it's not ideal, is it? It's not ideal when your board can't agree on the name. It's not ideal when you need to bring in a new manager and you've got 8 board members who want 8 different managers, or it's clear that a certain member of the board wants one of two managers, and I have a real big issue with this, and I said this on the stream yesterday. We talked about some of the latest rumours before we went in to talk about the players, and one of them was coming from Duncan Castles, who has stated that Bill Kenwright will prefer to bring David Moyes or Roberto Martinez back to the football club. And look, I know there's a lot of Everton fans that wouldn't be opposed to bringing David Moyes back. For me, I'd be massively opposed to bringing Roberto Martinez back. I think we all seem to forget that for as good as his first season was at Everton, he massively failed in the following seasons, and his football was a joke. We couldn't defend the bloody we couldn't defend the chocolate, I don't know, house or a gingerbread house, never mind a Premier League footballing team. We were absolutely dross. But the big issue I have with that is that if that is to be true, like I said, it's just pure speculation at the moment. If that is to be true, I really don't think Bill Kenwright is wanting to bring in David Moyes or Roberto Martinez because they're the best managers for the club, or because they're the best they're the best options for the club. I think Nuno Espirito, I think Bill Kenwright is sort of, those rumours are out there because Bill Kenwright has a personal relationship with David Moyes and Roberto Martinez, and it would be an easy option, and he'd be bringing in a manager that he knows and that he likes and that he knows that he likes and he can get along with, not specifically a manager that would be the best for the football club. And that's the big issue I have with that situation, is that there'll be a lot of fans with opinions that David Moyes could come in and do a brilliant job for Everton because he's been and done a brilliant job for West Ham. I don't think that's the case, because I don't think David Moyes can work with Marcel Brands. I just don't. That's my personal opinion. I think David Moyes likes going into a football club as he did at Everton, over a decade ago, as he's done at West Ham over the last 18 months. I think David Moyes likes to go into a football club and run the football club. I think David Moyes likes to go into a football club and make every footballing decision on transfers, on the way in which the club play, on the style on the pitch, on the players that come in and go out, whereas he wouldn't have that at Everton. He'd be coming in to purely be a head coach, to purely be a manager of the team, not to be a manager of the club, and that's why I don't think it would work. The Roberto Martinez stuff for me is just absolutely nonsense. It's nonsense. I don't understand why anybody would want to bring back a manager who drastically failed at this Everton team, at this club, and drastically failed with, let's be honest, a very, very good Everton team. All this Roberto Martinez needed to do in that second summer transfer window after we'd finished 5th was go out and bring in a couple, 2 or 3 really good defenders that could fit into this Everton team and that could solidify the defence. Maybe a new goalkeeper as well, because Tim Howard was sort of on his way out. Bring in a top goalkeeper, go and bring in 1 or 2 centre-half that could solidify the defence. You still had your forward line, you still had your Lukaku at the club, you still had your your Ross Barkley at that time, James McCarthy, Gareth Barry at time for another year, but he couldn't do it, and he relied that he was so stubborn, and he believed heavily in his way of doing things, and even though it wasn't working, he wouldn't change it. But that's my issue with that rumour regarding Bill Kenwright, and again, it might just be a rumour, it mightn't be true, but it's clear that that's not because that specific member of the board believes they're the best man for the job. It's just because they've got a relationship with them, and it's like me saying, right, go in and bring in my dad as Everton manager. Not because I think he's the best man for the job, but because I really like him and I've got a good relationship with him and he supports Everton and he likes this football club. It's not looking at who's the best man for the job and who's going to take Everton forward. It's just looking at who we get along with, or who he gets along with, and who he wants to bring in because he likes, and that's a nonsense way of looking at things, an absolute nonsense way of looking at things. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe as well. We've gone for full new away kit territory today because I want things to be a little bit more positive. I want things to be a little bit more upbeat, because I realised the last week has been quite sort of down and in the dumps with the streams and with Everton really in general, because we've lost our manager and things aren't really looking great for the future. So I thought we'd come on and just be a little bit more positive today. Look, whatever happens, whoever comes in. There's not one name there, there's not one manager on that list that everybody is going to agree with and that everybody is going to completely get behind, regardless of who it is, be it Nuno, be it Graham Potter, who we're going to talk about in a moment, be it Eddie Howe, be it David Moyes, be it Duncan Ferguson. There's always, and I mean this, there's always going to be a select group of fans who don't agree with it and who don't want that specific person to come in and manage the football club, and that's fine, because that's what opinion is about. But whoever it is, like I said, I don't particularly want Eddie Howe to be the next Everton manager. I don't particularly want David Moyes to be the next Everton manager, but if they were to come in, I'd back them, I'd support them, I'd give them my full backing, because that, that's the decision that the club have made, and we all have to get behind that manager now. It's no good Eddie Howe coming into Everton and in his first game, Everton, fans booing him, or fans going, he's useless, this fella. Give him his chance. If he proves to be, if he proves a lot of Evertonians right, for example, that he's not good enough, then you let your emotions be felt towards the club. But we have to give whoever comes in a chance and an opportunity, and it's going to be difficult, because like I said, there's not one name in that list, and we'll go through the list in a moment. I've got the latest betting odds, which again, I'll give my opinion on what betting odds mean and don't mean later on in the stream, but we'll go through the list in a moment. But there isn't one name on that list that I think everybody would 100% get behind and be like, yeah, that's the right man for the job. He's going to come in and transform Everton. Every single manager on the list has got his pluses and negatives. But yeah, I decided to go full brand new 2021-22 away kit today. We've got the new background. Joe's designed this belter new background, which is boss. Got a couple of new backgrounds on the channel now. We had to get rid of a certain person who was on the old ones. And then we've got obviously the new away kit on as well, which is just, for me, an absolute thing of beauty. Was very, very close to being put off it by the fact that we got absolutely trampled in the last game of the season, wearing it for the first time. But then I seen it in real life when I come into the shop, and I was like, oh my God, this is just absolute beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So we've gone full on new away kit. Sort of stream today. If you're enjoying it, please do leave a like, subscribe if you're new as well. We will get in the live comments in a moment. Don't forget to let us know what your thoughts are on everything that we're talking about as well. If you're enjoying, leave a like. David says your titles are a load of bollocks. When Sky Sports tell you and put it on their website, that's when it's real. That's not when it's real, mate, because Sky Sports chat a load of bollocks as well. The Telegraph, I would go as far as saying the Telegraph are a much more reliable source than Sky Sports. It used to be a situation where whatever Sky Sports said was true, and you sort of believed it. Now I honestly, I'd take everything Sky Sports say with a pinch of salt as well. I really, really would. And the titles of these streams are just rumours from other sort of articles and other sort of reliable sources and journalists. So, and I just give my opinion on them. That's how we work things here. Anyway, look, I want to talk about Brighton manager Graham Potter, or Brighton head coach Graham Potter, should I say, in a moment, and we will get into that. But before we do so, let's get into some of the live comments first. Like I said, massive thanks to everybody for joining us live. Nearly 150 people watching. If we could get to 150, that would be absolutely perfect. If you are enjoying it, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Ian says, Spurs not interested in Nuno. Again, as soon as I heard that Nuno was leaving Wolves at the end of the season, and I sort of, obviously we knew that Spurs were looking for a new manager, I did put two and two together. I thought Nuno's next club would be Tottenham Hotspur. I think he just seemed like the type of manager that Tottenham would go for. He seemed like the type of manager that Tottenham would want to bring in. So I am quite surprised that I haven't seen many links linking Nuno Espirito Santo to the Tottenham job. But maybe Tottenham have got their eyes on somebody else, or maybe Nuno doesn't want that move to Tottenham. James Birkenhead says we need to start asserting ourselves on the pitch and in the market. Manager and player market. I agree, mate. EFC Graphics says morning, everyone loved the new kid. It is right, mate. It is right. Yeah, absolutely, boss. It's even better in real life, and I promise you all, it is burnt orange. It's not that other colour. It's burnt orange, I promise you. Yeah, I think it's an absolute belter, and I hope you like the new background as well, including the new kit. Motta says too much backroom staff from Nuno, of which we wanted to bring in. Well, yeah, it's an interesting one that it's never really one I've heard before, that a manager appointment is stolen because of the amount of backroom staff. David Gundy says fair enough. But look, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. David, that's fair enough, mate. And look, we welcome all different opinions on the stream and on the channel, and that's why I do these streams, and that's why I read the comments out, because it's not just me coming on and saying this is what I think. Believe what I think. It's not about that whatsoever. I don't want Eddie Howe or David. I don't think David Moyes can work with Marcel Brands. Somebody in the comments might think David Moyes can work with Marcel Brands, and that's the beauty of having opinions. That's the beauty of football, is it's all about opinion. So look, fair enough, David. Fair enough. Everyone's entitled to it. Thanks for joining, like I said. In regards to the backroom stuff, again, it's a bit mad, isn't it? It's never really one I've heard. I've never really heard the rumour, that a managerial appointment is stolen because of the amount of backroom staff said manager wants to bring into the football club. It's a little bit of a head scratcher for me. And again, it isn't coming from the most reliable source in the world, so I wouldn't take it as absolute. Oh my God, that's solid. That's solid report. That's solid facts. But again, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Whammy says, hey guys, morning, how's everyone doing? Hi Whammy, I'm not doing too bad, mate. I hope you're doing well yourself. Lenny says, I'd like Potter. I'd like Harry Potter, to be honest with you, mate. Does Graham Potter come, does it run in the family? Does Graham Potter come with a wand and a load of spells? Can he go like, Fabian Delphi, not injured all the time, and just make Fabian Delphi a dead good footballer who, actually does something at the football club? Can he come in and go, James Rodriguez calf, not bollocks anymore, and just wave his wand and make James just absolutely boss? I mean, he's boss anyway, but make him absolutely boss and not injured all the time. I don't know if it runs in the family or not, but I really do like Harry Potter. He'd be a boss. He'd be a boss appointment, I think. Jorky says Rafa for me. Yeah, look, again, Rafa Benitez is a name that hasn't really been spoken about much. The Athletic did publish an article over the last couple of days or so, which is something that we're going to talk about in a second when we talk about the Graham Potter stuff. And they mentioned Rafa. It was actually today, I think they posted the article, and they said there's something about that. There's a little bit of an issue with obviously his past and the club he's managed in the past, and that's why it sort of divides the opinion of the Everton board. But we haven't really seen Rafa Benitez linked much with the Everton job, have we? We haven't really seen a lot of solid links saying that Rafa Benitez would be interested, or Everton are interested in him. Motta says Potter is the dark horse. Well, yeah, we're going to talk about Brighton manager Graham Potter in a moment. Stewart says, hi mate, what are your thoughts on Ten Hag? Seems a good fit for me and would have the Dutch connection with brands. I like Ten Hag. However, I don't think he's high on the list, if I'm being honest with you. I really don't think he's high on the list. I just think he's one of those names that was thrown in there and Everton are sort of maybe looking at, but I probably don't think it's very realistic. Richard says, good evening from Australia, Cam, and all you other Evertonians. Nice one, Richard. Really appreciate that, mate. Hope you are doing well over in Australia. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Johnny says, sounds more like he's talking Italian than doing Harry Potter spells there. There you go. Maybe my Harry Potter impressions aren't that great. Maybe they're just not. I'm happy to accept that my Harry Potter impressions aren't that great. I apologise about that. Wimmy says, Carly, so pissed off, oh shit, that worked. Luke says, nah, Harry Potter is too error-prone. Hermione for me. There you go. Joshua says, can't we just hire Cam, give him 200 million to spend? Imagine it, mate. I'd just buy loads of the away kit. I'd just buy 200 million pounds worth of the away top and just go. Probably, to be fair, probably be more beneficial than most of the players at Everton, to be fair. Paul Tyson says, Potter has a sports psychologist degree, just what we need. Again, a very, very, very interesting sort of, I suppose, bow to Graham Potter's, or arrow to Graham Potter's bow, or whatever the saying is. Stephen wants a British manager. Joshua says, Cam, can you just manage Everton? I wish, mate. David says, I think we need to take our time finding the right manager. We do. It needs to be a thorough process, and it needs to be a process that Everton don't rush, and Everton don't just go balls to the wall straight away with. But it also needs to be a process that Everton understand that we haven't got all the time in the world to to sort of to see out it. We need to ultimately bring in a manager sooner rather than later. Where are we? Lewis says, quality again, Cam 1, Conte or Potter personally wouldn't be 100% against Dunk though. Fair enough, thank you very much, Lewis, really appreciate that. Hacken says, would all the players respect Dunk, or do they play for him? It's a really good point. Ramey says, no manager should be laden with this squad and shit show their first job unless they want to fail. Talking about Dunk there. And Matthew says, I get behind Dunk for sure. I think he has what it takes to galvanise the squad for the next 24 months. Well, look, again, the Duncan Ferguson stuff is interesting, isn't it? Because he has been a man that's linked with the job. According to reports last week, he was wanting the job. He was heavily interested in it, but again, I suppose it all depends on the club's stance on that and whether the club would want to take a risk with Duncan Ferguson, because he is a massive risk. Miles says, I've got a sports psychology degree, can I be manager? There you go. Sam says, I would be over the moon with Potter at Everton. Get Miles in as manager. May as well get Miles in as manager. How much do you want a year, mate? Anyway, let's get into another transfer rumour. Not a transfer rumour. Well, I suppose it is a transfer rumour. Another rumour regarding a potential new manager at Everton Football Club. This one is coming from The Athletic, who of course are a very, very, very reliable and reputable source. And they have got a lot of journalists and writers that work closely with Everton. And typically what The Athletic say, you sort of pay attention to. And they have said that this was I must stress, they didn't put this information out in isolation. They didn't put a tweet out with this information. It wasn't like exclusive Everton and interest in Graham Potter. It was part of a story, should I say, or it was part of an article. Is probably the right word. It was part of an article that was just talking about Everton's managerial appointments and who Everton may bring in and who Everton are interested in bringing in. And anyway, The Athletic have said that Brighton and Hove Albion head coach Graham Potter is somebody the Everton board have not disregarded. They actually said none of the Everton board have disregarded, so I think talking about them individually as board members. And Marcel Brands, it is believed, particularly rates the former Swansea City boss. So there you go. Graham Potter, a man who the Everton board have not disregarded and seem like they are keeping maybe their eye on a little bit, or maybe keeping their sort of one eye on Graham Potter, and that Marcel Brands is a particular admirer of the Brighton and Hove Albion boss. Now that for me is a big sort of plus point anyway, that Marcel Brands is a great admirer of Graham Potter. I'm not saying I want Graham Potter at Everton, by the way. Bloody hell. Just choked on my words there. Sorry about that. Probably a little bit of dust. Do apologise. If you're enjoying the stream, hit the like button. It might start dust flying in my mouth every now and then. But yeah, I'm not advocating Graham Potter. I'm not saying I want Graham Potter as the Everton manager. But what I 100% certainly do want is a manager that Marcel Brands believes he can get along with, and a manager that Marcel Brands sort of rates, as the Athletic have said about Graham Potter. Because ultimately, what's the point in bringing in a manager that Marcel Brands isn't going to get along with, or that Marcel Brands doesn't believe can be successful at the football club? Because then you're ultimately instantly creating a sort of barrier between Marcel Brands and the manager, and we simply can't afford to have a barrier between the director of football and the manager of Everton Football Club. Those two roles, those two people need to work together, and ultimately, if Marcel Brands is coming out and saying that he rates Graham Potter and he's an advocate of Graham Potter, he advocates an appointment of Graham Potter, then that for me is a massive plus point. And again, I'm not saying that we should go out and get Graham Potter. I know there's not a lot of Evertonians that rate Graham Potter or want him to come into Everton Football Club. I know there's a lot of Evertonians that do rate Graham Potter and would want him to come in. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying I'm fully on the Graham Potter train. Bring him in, he'd be the best thing to ever happen to Everton. However, I do really like that last sort of sentence in that article, or in that sort of paragraph, which was that Marcel Brands rates Graham Potter, because ultimately we need to bring in a manager that Marcel Brands rates. We need to bring in a manager that Marcel Brands can work with and can get along with. And if Graham Potter's one of those names, then he should absolutely be on the list. If David Moyes isn't one of those names, then why is he on the list? Is he only on the list because of sentimental reasons, because he's been here before and he done really well at us 10 years ago? Because if Everton ultimately sit down with Marcel Brands and have a list and say, right, you tell me which of these managers you think you can work with and which of these managers you believe are good enough to manage Everton Football Club, and if Marcel Brands crosses off a load of names, then those names shouldn't even be in the discussion. Disregard the sentimental reasons, disregard the fact that Farhad Moshiri might think that they're absolutely bossing, they'll look boss on the sideline, disregard all of that. If Marcel Brands doesn't believe they will work, then they shouldn't be even in the question, because Marcel Brands is the director of football and should be directing the football. And again, I know there's not a lot of Evertonians that like Marcel Brands, and we done the stream on Friday and we had a load of comments saying, oh Cam, well what's Marcel Brands done to get all of this trust? What's Marcel Brands done to get all of this responsibility? He's failed for this, that and the other. He's the one that's responsible for the squad and all this and all that. Listen, we can all have our different opinions on Marcel Brands. I've said it a number of times before over the last week or so. I've said it multiple times. We can all have our different opinions. We can all have our different thoughts on Marcel Brands and whether or not he should be in charge of recruitment, or whether or not he should even be at the football club. But ultimately, our opinions matter because we're fans, but the club have given trust to Marcel Brands for an extra 3 years. The club brought him in for 3 years, and now after those 3 years, they've given him another 3-year contract. So even though some fans might believe he's not good enough, and some fans might think Marcel Brands is at fault for some of the players or previous managerial appointments to the football club, all of that doesn't really matter in this situation. What matters is that the club have given the trust and the faith in Marcel Brands to be the director of football, so he has to start being allowed to make footballing decisions. And also what that would do is it would put the not only the responsibility on Marcel Brands, but it would mean that Marcel Brands is accountable, wouldn't it? If Marcel Brands, if Everton come out tomorrow and say, look, the decision to bring in the new manager is purely on Marcel Brands. Marcel Brands is deciding who comes in. Marcel Brands is deciding who is the next Everton manager. Then ultimately, if the next manager comes in and fails, or doesn't really bring in the right types of players, or can't improve Everton Football Club, then the responsibility and the blame falls on Marcel Brands. The accountability falls on Marcel Brands. You look at Marcel Brands and you go, well, hang on, you chose this man. It was fully your decision. The club told us, 3 weeks before he come into the club, that it was fully your decision. So you're accountable for the fact that this person hasn't come in and hasn't been a success. It's the same with players. If you give Marcel Brands full reign on who he wants to bring in terms of playing staff, if those players come in and they don't do a good enough job, then Marcel Brands is fully accountable for bringing those players into the football club. And that's one of the biggest issues with Everton, honestly, I believe, is it's from top to bottom, and we see it on the pitch, and it's something I mentioned in numerous instant match reactions last season, is that no players on that pitch take accountability, no players on that pitch take responsibility. And this isn't just an issue, it's a known, I don't want to say statement, but it's a known sort of cliche in business as to that whatever you're seeing on the floor, i.e. on the pitch in this situation, it's all just a representation of what's going on at the top of the football club. Bad processes and bad work and bad practice falls from the top to the bottom. So what we're seeing on the football pitch at the moment at Everton, for most part, is a shambles. It's players that don't want to take responsibility. It's players that don't take accountability. There's no leaders. There's no one that picks the ball up or picks their teammates up and goes, come on lads, we're better than these, we're winning this game, we're getting at these. And that's because you're seeing that on the pitch, but you're also seeing that at various different levels of the football club. You're seeing that in the boardroom. Where's the accountability? Where's the responsibility? Who is accountable for employing the manager? Do we know? Is it a group decision? But why is it a group decision when you've got a director of football in there to make those decisions? Give it all to Marcel Brands. Give the responsibility. Give the pressure to Marcel Brands. And if he doesn't provide a good enough manager, or if he doesn't provide a good enough set of players, then Marcel Brands takes the blame. Marcel Brands is accountable. So for all those Evertonians saying, oh, Marcel Brands isn't good enough, he hasn't done a good enough job, he shouldn't be in that position, why don't we give the responsibility all to Marcel Brands? Sit back and go, do you know what? You make every footballing decision at the club, because that's why you're here as the director of football. And if it fails, it's all on you. It's not on Farhad Bashiri because he's stuck his nose in and wanted a certain player or a certain manager because they've won a trophy in the past, or because they're of a certain mould. It's not on Bill Kenwright because he desperately wanted David Moyes to come back because he's got a good relationship with him. It's on Marcel Brands because Marcel Brands has made those decisions. And look, like I said, that is one big positive in the Graham Potter situation, is that, like I said, Marcel Brands is an admirer of Graham Potter, and Marcel Brands believes that Graham Potter obviously could come in and do a job at Everton. Now, does that mean I'm a full advocate of Graham Potter taking the Everton job? No, of course it doesn't, because look, that doesn't mean that Graham Potter's good enough or not. It doesn't mean that Graham Potter's the right man for the job. Just because Marcel Brands rates him, as the article states, that doesn't mean that he's the right man for the job. It doesn't mean that he's going to come in and do an excellent job. But it does mean that the director of football, i.e. the man who should be making all of the footballing decisions, believes that he is, he is on the list, or certainly should be on the list for potential candidates. And like I said, that should be a sentence that we're reading at the end of every single manager we are linked with. Every single manager Everton are linked with, we should be reading that sentence at the end. Marcel Brands. I would absolutely love that every single time we see a transfer rumour now, regardless of who it's from, and regardless of who it's about, whether it be about David Moyes, whether it be about Eddie Howe, whether it be about Nuno Espirito Santo, whether it be about Graham Potter, whoever it may be about, I would absolutely love for at the bottom of that transfer rumour there be a little segment that says, does Marcel Brands approve? Yes or no? Because honestly, I don't care if it's Harry Potter, Graham Potter, I don't care if it's Nuno Espirito Santo, I don't care if it's Frank who works in the Tesco down the road. If at the bottom of that tweet or that article it says Marcel Brands does not approve, then we shouldn't be looking anywhere near them, because Marcel Brands should be given the responsibility, and therefore he is accountable for whether it's a good decision or whether it's a bad decision. He becomes accountable. Otherwise, what's the point in having Marcel Brands? And that's not me saying I'm his biggest fan. That's not me saying, oh my god, Marcel Brands is the best thing since sliced bread and he should be given all of the responsibility. I'm not saying that because I'm his biggest fan or because I think he's done an excellent job. I don't think he has done an excellent job. I think he's done an alright job. I think he could do a lot better. It's what I'm saying it because if we don't give Marcel Brands that accountability and that responsibility, then what's the point in him being here? What's the point in him being director of football? What's the point in him being paid probably millions a year to do that role if we're not going to allow him to do that role? Anyway, a little bit of a rant there about Marcel Brands. But yeah, there you go. That is the latest on Graham Potter. And it states that Everton have not, or the Everton board, should I say rather, have actually have not. Hang on, let me get the full terminology up. Brighton and Hove Albion head coach Graham Potter is somebody the Everton board have not disregarded. Marcel Brands, it is believed, particularly rates the former Swansea. Why do I keep saying Swansea? Like I'm from Yorkshire or something. The former Swansea City boss is rated by Marcel Brands, which again goes a long way for me. It does go a long way for me. Anyway, let's get into some of the live comments then, and then I want to talk about the odds. The latest betting odds for the next Everton manager, because I'll give my 10 pence worth on that as well. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. Only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. I'm nearly getting on 200 viewers now. If we could push for that, it would mean a great deal to me. If you could share the stream on social media, that would mean an absolute massive amount to me as well. Like I said, if you're enjoying and you could hit that like button, please do so. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Loads more content coming out over the next couple of weeks or so. Wayman says, or over the next couple of days or so, should I say. Wayman says, don't matter if they're arguing or playing twist, the result is the same. Everton are far too slow. Jack the Lad says, there's no point in being here. Cameron, how many players has he bought? Well, and again, listen, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and that's fair enough. And I by the way, like I said, I'm not sitting here saying Marcel Brands has done an excellent job at Everton and he should be given all the responsibility because he's done a perfect job at the club. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the club have obviously given Marcel Brands that responsibility. The club have obviously given Marcel Brands that trust, and because of that, he should be allowed to make those tough decisions. He should be allowed to make those footballing decisions, because otherwise, what is the point in him being here? And I know people might say, oh, there's no point in him being here anyway because the players he's brought in have been crap, and that's fair enough, and that's, everyone's opinion, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but the reality is he's here, and he's here for the next 3 years because he's just signed a new contract. James says, honestly, I'd love Conte for me. I'd go all out for him. Keep hammers and keep us looking like a forward-thinking big club. Ziz says, yep, Conte, no doubt dream big. I don't think Conte would come here, but fair enough. Barry says, Machedi wants Conte, is the closest to Ancelotti. Well, Conte's just turned down Tottenham, hasn't he? He's just turned down Tottenham for whatever reason. So would he come to Everton? I don't know. Jedi says, pretty gutted hearing the new Nuno is on the verge of the Palace job. He brought through Pedro Neto, Matt Doherty, Neves, Jimenez, Jota, etc. It would be great to build our team, so pretty gutted there. Well, look, again, it's no surprise about the Nuno stuff. It isn't, and look, it's not a done deal. It just says that he's pretty close and he's on the verge of becoming the new Palace manager, but maybe that's the kick up the arse that Everton need to go out and throw their weight about a little bit. Remy says, maybe Terry, but we are still here with no manager and with the board does whatever it's doing. Yeah. Here you go. Terry says, maybe he is choosing the manager. The papers say Brands and Kenwright and Machedi disagree every time we need a manager. It's just a recycled story. Everton FL says, if Duncan Ferguson comes in, I'm done. Can't be out with the club making a mistake after mistake after mistake. Pure shite player. He'd be even worse as a manager. Strong opinions there. Whammy says Cam was decisive. Cam was decisive. He was thinking, I like that shirt, I'm going to get it. Then he went and got it. It's next level thinking, really. That's it, mate. That's it. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. Jack the Lad says, Brands out. Who the F has he bought? Decent. Marco Silva bought Dean. Richarlison, Carlo, James, Alan, Decore. Rest of flops. Decore was a brand signing, to be fair. And so was Luca Dean. Luca Dean wasn't Marco Silva. Richarlison wasn't. And Ancelotti was James and Alan. But Ben Godfrey, I'd like to throw in the name in the hat there. Jared Branthwaite, another young player who's come in for Marcel Brands and done a good job. But look, fair enough, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, like I said. Keaton says 200, John, player Blues will secure Sarri, but Conte should have been seriously considered. Maybe he was considered, and maybe Conte laughed down the phone and said, nah, you're joking, aren't you? Jedi says, boss, share cam is right. Everton FL says, no chance they come here, bye-bye ham eggs. Everton FL says, can't be any worse than Duncan Ferguson coming in. Bye-bye Hamek says Sarri or Conte would be great, but I can't see it. Yeah, me neither, mate, me neither. FL really doesn't like the Duncan Ferguson appointment. Ethan says, I like Graham Potter. Me, Torquay Toffee says Rangnick or Big Dunk. Paul says Conte wanted serious money off Levy for the squad. He did. Richard said Rangnick is in his 60s, too old for a project like Everton. He is in his 60s. He's also been a director of football as well, so there's talk about whether him and Marcel Brands would clash. Saul says, I get people saying the board should have taken their time, but we can't have a season of uncertainty. Too many players need to be shipped out. Paul says, maybe you have, but you're not a manager in the Prem, are you? I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know if you're talking about me then. I'm not a manager in the Prem, no. Louis says, yes, like, Cam, what's happening? Paul says, I bet we get a temporary manager. We need a permanent one. Stallion says, Conte is coming. Louis says, I'd 100% take Potter, sorry. Joseph says, will Potter be able to play good footy with our shit players? Probably not, mate. Probably not. He'd have to bring in players and he'd have to work with Marcel Brands in doing that. Maybe the biggest positive about Graham Potter is that he maybe could bring in Yves Bissouma, who'd be absolutely amazing in Everton. Kev says it's a nonsense of a football team. Maybe says, no, Cam, I think Everton's arse has lost all sensation due to the previous kickings. I'm pretty sure the arrival Thanos couldn't kick Everton into gear. Yeah, probably not, mate. And Tom says, this is why paying attention to rumours is a waste of time. Clearly Everton win not in for Nuno. But Everton, just because Nuno might be on the verge of signing for Palace, doesn't mean that Everton were never in for him. Everton might still be in for him. This just might be a situation of sort of Nuno saying, do you know what? If Everton don't give me what I want, I'm going to sign for Palace. And maybe it's a bit of a kick up the arse for Everton. I don't know. I really, really don't know. Anyway, big thanks for watching. If you're enjoying so far, please do hit that like button. Does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Like I said earlier on today, loads more content coming up over the next couple of days or so. Loads more managerial updates as well. If you could like, if you could like this team, it would be absolutely perfect. 191 people watching. If you can get to, I don't know, 100 likes, that would be absolutely perfect. 59 now. Big thanks to everybody for watching. Anyway, I want to get into the latest Everton managerial odds because I think it's something worth talking about. Peter says, greetings from Oz, by the way. Is right, Peter. Thank you very much. Celtic Vapors is the Everton job turning into a poison chalice. It probably already is, to be honest. Probably already is. I don't know about turning into. Pardon me. Anyway, let's get in to some of the latest Everton managerial odds from taking these from Sky Bet. Myself, I know a lot of other people might have different preferred betting companies and therefore take their odds from them, and they might be a little bit different. Knowledge says, is that red on the Everton away top? No, it's not. It's burnt orange. I can promise you now, having looked at it in person, it's absolutely burnt orange. It's not red whatsoever. Anyway, sorry, bit of a tickly throat going on this morning. Not too sure what's going on there. Bit of a tickly throat indeed. Anyway, let's get in to some of the latest Everton managerial odds because I do think it's something that a lot of Blues have been talking about. It's something that a lot of Everton channels have been mentioning as well. So I thought, you know what, we'll get into it ourselves. We'll may as well join the party, mightn't we? Sammy says Fabrizio Romano in his latest podcast says Marcel Brands highly rates David Wagner. I don't highly rate David Wagner. I think he's dreadful, mate. I think he's absolutely dreadful. But there you go. If Marcel Brands rates him, Marcel Brands rates him. Anyway, let's get into the latest odds then, because they are certainly turning heads, I think, at the moment, and they're certainly, a lot of people take a lot from betting odds, which, again, bloody hell. Well, Manel, my throat isn't enjoying it today, is it? I don't take much from betting odds whatsoever. But listen, a lot of people do, and a lot of people believe. Samyak says Cam get. It's not that. It's really not that. It's just a tickly throat. It's the fact that I've not long woken up and I haven't really had much to drink today. So it's really not that, I promise you. Paul says I took 14-1 Potter on Friday. There you go. Well, again, we'll have a look at what Graham Potter is this morning. I must stress and I must state that I've taken bloody hell. I've taken these betting odds from prior to the rumour that Nuno Espirito Santo was on the verge of joining Crystal Palace. So the betting odds now regarding Nuno are probably a little bit different. I took these earlier this morning before that news come out, before that news was released. So you have to bear that in mind. Anyway, let's get into them. Nuno is still top of the list, or certainly was this morning, prior to that rumour regarding Crystal Palace. The Nuno rumours state that he is currently 8-15. Liam donates £2 to the live stream. Thank you very much, Liam. He says, get yourself some cough sweets, Cam. Thank you very much, Liam. Really, really do appreciate that, mate. Honestly, it means a massive, massive amount to me. I will do. Nuno, this morning, like I said, top of the list, 8-15 odds to become the next Everton manager. That was before. I did take these before the rumour that he was on the verge of joining Crystal Palace. So obviously we have to bear that in mind. RW says Nuno to Palace is good news until we appoint Howe. Next in the list is Duncan Ferguson at 6-1, which again will be one that maybe disappoints a lot of Evertonians. Maybe makes a lot of Evertonians happy. Then you go further down, Eddie Howe 9-1. David Moyes then is 10-1, as is Graham Potter. He's at 10-1. Rafa Benitez was 12-1, and then you start to get into the names that have been rumoured with Everton, but probably aren't really high up in Everton's list. And that is Andre Pirlo 20-1, Antonio Conte 20-1, Frank Lampard 20-1, Paulo Fonseca the same, Roberto Martinez the same, Sergio Coenchiao the same, Eric Ten Hag is 22-1, Ralph Rangnick 22-1, Chris Wilder 25-1, as is Maurizio Sarri, as is Roberto Mancini, Vito Pereira, Zinedine Zidane. Then 28-1 is Brendan Rodgers, Claudio Ranieri, Joachim Low, and Marcelo Gallardo. Also Pochettino and Sean Dyche, 28-1. And then 33-1 is Andre Villas-Boas, Christopher Galtier, and Jurgen Klinsmann. So let's be honest, the majority of those names are utter nonsense and aren't linked with Everton, or aren't probably even in the thought process of Everton Football Club. But the names that are Nuno Espirito Santo, obviously, again, we'll see what happens with Crystal Palace and him today. Duncan Ferguson, Eddie Howe, David Moyes, Graham Potter, and Rafa Benitez. I think anyone else beyond that is sort of an outside shout, even the likes of Ten Hag and Ralph Rangnick, who people are talking about. I really don't think there's much in those rumours whatsoever, for as much as people might want them. And look, I'm not going to tell anybody who to bet on, because I don't give financial advice. I don't think legally I can give financial advice, and I'm not going to put a bet on any of them. But one thing I would say about betting odds is that I wouldn't really take betting odds as anything whatsoever, if I'm being honest with you. The reason for that is because I could go on now. I could come on this live stream and again, nothing I'm about to say is true, but I could come on this live stream and say I've just had a phone call from somebody who said that, I don't know, me nan is going to be the next Everton manager, and they know 100% that that's the case, and everyone in this live stream, 185 people, could go and bet a tenner on my nan becoming the Everton manager, and she'd probably shoot up the top of the odds, and it'd probably be about 7-15 that me nan was going to become the Everton manager, when really it's a load of nonsense. So don't really believe the odds. The odds don't really tell you anything. They can sometimes mean that the bookies have been given information that maybe we haven't been given, but more often than not, the odds fluctuate depending on who is betting on, who's betting on who the most, and let's be honest, a lot of people will have bet on Nuno, that's why he's at the top. Some people might have thrown a couple of quid on Duncan Ferguson because they want him to be, that's probably why he's second. So I wouldn't take too much from the betting odds, but it is interesting to see who's in the sort of top 5, top 6 list of potential Everton managers. Graham Potter has shot up there, and probably shot up since the Athletics article about him being admired by Marcel Brands. So look, there you go, that's the latest Everton news, that's the latest Everton managerial update, I suppose. Nuno Espirito Santo, according to John Percy at the Telegraph, is close and on the verge, as John Percy says, to joining Crystal Palace as their new manager. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. We'll be keeping everybody updated as and when the news breaks regarding Everton's managerial appointments on the channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It does only take a second if you're new to the channel. And if you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button as well. Graham Potter is believed to have not yet been disregarded by the Everton board, and it's believed that Marcel Brands rates Graham Potter, as the article in The Athletic states. Eddie Howe yesterday, there was a rumour yesterday, but we talked about on yesterday's team, saying Eddie Howe is putting his sort of hand on the table, if you like, and is desperately wanting the Everton job. According to Duncan Castles, Bill Kenwright prefers to bring back either David Moyes or Roberto Martinez. So there's still a lot of names floating about, there's still a lot of rumours floating about, and there's a lot of rumours that I wouldn't really particularly pay too much attention to. What I would say is I believe that by the end of this week, maybe come Thursday, Friday time, we'll have a clear maybe 1-2 names that you're sort of, that are really running with that are really sort of leading the race, that we'll be able to come and sit down and talk about. I do think that by the end of this week, we mightn't have seen an official appointment, but we'll certainly sort of know in and around who it's going to be that's going to come in, or certainly, out of maybe 1, 2, 3 names who it's going to be. It won't be 20 odd managers still being linked. Hopefully it's not anyway, because again, like I said, Everton really need to narrow down this list and go out and sort of, again, cross off the names on the list that aren't anywhere near good enough to manage Everton, or aren't going to come and manage Everton for various different reasons, and sort of try and prioritise the best names out there for the football club. Carrick says, how trustworthy is the source saying Nuno's on the verge of Palace? Well, it's the Telegraph, John Percy from the Telegraph, so they are, quite a reliable source, aren't they? Noel says Potter would be a smart signing. He has Pep's number every time they play, with a shite squad to boot. Hameg says only take notice of betting odds if there's a clear odds on favourite. Fair enough, mate. Again, I don't know the second thing about betting, so I'm not going to advise anybody on betting. Liam says Big Dunk is my number one sentiment. And I really want him to be to be honest, feel it's his time. Potter would be number 2. Reckon if his name wasn't Graham Potter, other people would want him more. Probably, mate, probably. Richard said Sporting or ex-Lille manager. For me, both won trophies in leagues. They aren't expected to improve and working with younger players' budgets. I think the Lille manager is going to Nice, I think. Don't quote me on that. OK says Everton have their eyes on an international manager and are waiting for the end of the Euros. I'm not too sure who that's regarding. Peter says Bielsa would be fantastic, but we don't have the squad to play his style of football. Rinialo says Bielsa likes Leeds and would not leave. Listen, if Everton want Bielsa, they should go and test the waters. I'm not saying he'd come, but they should definitely go and test the waters. Teddy says new top looks great, but what's the build quality like at the top? It's nice, mate. It's nice. It's actually, I thought it was cotton. To be honest, I thought it was more like, I'm trying to think of a top. I thought it was more like, if you remember the legacy kit that we brought out a couple of years ago with Rooney and Baines modelled it. I've worn it a couple of times on the channel. I thought it'd be more like that sort of material, but it's not. It's the same material as last season's kit. So if you've had any one of last season's kits or training tops, it's the same material as those. Big Nod says, come on. Brands demands that you are allowed to do your job, and Graham Potter in. There you go. Look, big thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. We will be back tomorrow with another live stream, another update on the Everton managerial situation, so don't forget to join us early tomorrow morning for that one. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. A massive thanks to everybody in the live comments as per usual. Really do appreciate it. If you're watching as a YouTube video, please do leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below, and we will get involved with as many of them as possible. We're also going to do another stream over the next couple of days regarding players. There's been some updates on Moise Keane's sort of situation at PSG, and we've also been linked with a couple of other players as well, so we'll talk about those in a stream later on in the week. But a massive thank you for watching. Please do hit that like button if you've enjoyed. Liam says take it easy, mate. Cheers, Liam, really appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Leave your thoughts in the comments if you're watching a YouTube video, and we'll get involved with as many of them as possible. Big thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.